This is Karl talking management for the Globe Mail. Today I'm delighted to speak to a colleague from the London Business School, Ioannis Ioannou. You've been looking at what is a sustainable company. What have you come to? What conclusions have you come to?
You see, Karl, there's a lot of work going around about sustainable companies that have sustainability in their DNA. But when we as academics try to engage with that question and try to understand, well, what does that mean? What is the DNA of the organization, right? So that's one of the questions, the big questions that I'm working on with a number of co-authors, two co-authors at HBS, Bob Eccles and George Serafim. So the question was, let's open this black box of what is a sustainable company, and let's try to understand what are the performance implications in the long run. So in this work, we start thinking about, well, is a sustainable organization different in terms of its corporate governance? Is it different in terms of its stakeholder engagement? Is it different in terms of the time horizon that the sustainable company adopts? So you see, those are all small pieces of a mosaic that we argue that basically constitute what is a new form of the modern corporation, what we call the sustainable corporation. So all these 9 aspects essentially and different facets of the organization that bring it together. And the interesting result, of course, is that once you define a sustainable organization across these dimensions, and then being different doesn't necessarily mean being better, and you examine long-term performance implications, whether it's stock market, whether it's operational performance and so on, and compare them with what we call the traditional business model or the less sustainable one, you'll see that sustainable companies significantly outperform. And as you know, the issue of whether sustainable organizations outperform in the long run has been, well, the holy grail of all the work of what used to be CSR or social responsibility or corporate citizenship, however you want to define it.
Ioannis, you mentioned 9 characteristics. What are the top 4 of those 9 characteristics?
So there's categories, so there's pillars. So the 4 primary pillars is corporate governance, stakeholder engagement, reporting and external communications, as well as the adoption of a long-term versus short-term time horizon. So if you see their fundamental differences, let's take governance, for example. Sustainable organizations have sustainability as a formal board responsibility, and they also are more likely to have a sustainability subcommittee at the board level. Right? If you see their stakeholder engagement practices, right? If you see a lot of practices one by one, do they train their managers? Do they have processes through which to get the risks and opportunities with their stakeholders together on the table and so on? You'll see that their stakeholder engagement is much deeper, and it's not kind of an ad hoc resolution of problems. When you see time horizons, you'll see that, well, more long-term investors, in other words, investors that trade less often and have more focused portfolios, are actually more likely to own a sustainable company stock as opposed to traditional business model, right? And if you, in this work, we're actually able to have transcripts of how these companies speak with their analysts, essentially, and you'll see that there's actually a better balance between long-term and short-term discussion, or between financial and non-financial metrics, kind of telling you that these companies integrate the financial issues, the idea of economic performance, in addition to environmental and social performance. So those are 2 peripheral, distinct issues, or issues that lie separately, essentially, but they are part of the one and the same business model, and in fact they function synergistically to each other.